Guiding the club from 23rd to 10th last season was certainly impressive, and Rowett's side have continued to progress in the current campaign. And following last season's difficult start, Blues are certainly reaping the rewards of a full pre-season under Rowett.
How important was it to get a full summer, sort of a full pre-season to prepare the squad for this campaign we're currently in? I mean, what were your aims in that period?
Well, I think it's always an opportunity just to tweak again. I think when you first come in, you have to very quickly assess the players that you think can get your results, and sometimes you have to live with 2 or 3 players in the squad that perhaps are not quite the type of players you would normally have in your squad. And I think often the first summer is an opportunity to maybe freshen that up and bring in a little bit more quality around the type of player that you feel the squad's missing, or the type of player that fits the characteristics of our teams. You know, our teams, we want them to be fast, athletic, with desire and obviously ability, but in those different types of ways. And some of those players didn't fit into that. So therefore, in the summer, that's the first opportunity to then change the dynamic of a squad. Never wanted to change it massively in terms, I didn't want to bring in 10, 12, 13 players, just maybe 6 or 7 quality players. And then I think to have a period of 6 weeks to work on your principles again, and to get the players up to speed in terms of the fitness element. You have to remember, of course, we've changed the sports science department, we've added to the sports science department, so again, 1 or 2 of those things we can do extra work with the players, and I think that was important. Also around the building, you can see this meeting room's moved on another 3 or 4 notches in terms of what we're able to show the players and the technology. The gym has moved on a level in terms of the refit and what we can do with the players. And I think all of those things were just as important as the recruitment on the pitch.
A lot has been made about the off-field situation at the club. How has it impacted on how you have had to manage, if at all?
I think it's made it quite clear. I think if had there been vast amounts of money available in the budget at the start, I probably wouldn't have got the job. I'm being really honest. It probably wouldn't have been me that got the job. So therefore, coming into the job, I understood the parameters when we first came in. So I'm not the sort of person that would then start whinging about that after 4 or 5 weeks if we don't get results. That wasn't an excuse. And I think also the other thing you realise straight away when you come into the club is everyone's desperate to turn the form around and the feel of the club around, because it had obviously hit at the buffers a little bit for maybe 12 months. And I think, my job's very, very clear. If I need something I go to the same people, and I get a very clear yes or no probably within, a day. Whereas some clubs, I would imagine that, you go to people and it has to be bandied around the room and maybe 4 or 5, and then someone else might make a decision over your head and you might get to make one decision. I don't know, but it's very clear, and I think, first and foremost is I've been able to make the decisions that I think have been crucial to our progress with the other staff. And we've been supported with that, and that's been a huge, huge help.
And this season, the team has been a bona fide challenger in and around the playoff positions. How has that been achieved?
Just again by maintaining the form we showed last year. I think last year over the 32 games or whatever it is, I think we were points-wise not far off the playoff totals. If you equated that over to 46, I know that's me trying to make it sound better than it actually is. And I think we've just carried that on. If you look at our form's been pretty consistent for quite a long period now, almost the period of a season, which I think is a sign of, it's not a fluke. It's not something that we've just done for a little bit. We've done it consistently. So, good characters together as a group. I think again, that's a group of staff, that's a group of players that every player wants to work hard for each other. And I think when you've got that little bit of synergy within the team and that kind of collective desire to win something, if you lose a game or 2, it doesn't take long before you get back on the track. Or if you lose a game, you lose it in the right way. You lose it trying your hardest to make something happen. And I'm a great believer that goes an awful long way. That desire for success over an abundance of talent and perhaps less of a desire. That's always been my management philosophy.
The expectation level naturally increases because Blues are doing so well. I mean, how do you and the players and your staff, how do you cope with that and maintain this upward curve?
I think you try not to cope with it, because I think I've said this a lot all the way. If we do our job properly, then there will be great expectation. There will be a real feeling amongst the fans and the club and the players that, you know, we can finish somewhere towards the top end of the table. So it's not for us to do it. I think the way you maintain it is you have to constantly reinforce and remind the players of what we're good at and what our standards are. And I think we tend to sit down at the start of the season and say, right, what standard are we going to set as a group? And the players will come up with some things, we'll come up with some things, and then you use that as a little bit of a barometer during the season. You know, if we drop below that standards, listen, chaps, this is your standards. This is what you said we need to achieve to finish in you know, whatever that is. And we've never spoke about where we think we can finish, ironically. And I think that's important. I think it's important that we keep humble and we always keep trying to work to become better. And for me, it's a performance cycle. You know, it's not about points targets. It's not about points tallies, because I think therefore you fail or you succeed. And I think there's a big cost of failing to hit points targets, whereas to try and be the best team and you know, have 10 or 12 little markers of success every day is probably a more effective way of doing it.
You talked after the victory at Brentford about how football is about creating chances, what you do with possession rather than just having possession for the sake of it. How do you want your team to evolve eventually?
Quite a hard question, really. I mean, I'm probably like most managers, but I just want to win. I'm not really bothered how I do it. I don't mean that in a blasé way, and I don't mean that I don't care what our fans want to see or anything like that. Of course, we want to. I think football comes in many different formats. I personally, and I'm not into. You know, I don't gauge. I've never gauged the success of any of my teams by the amount of possession they've had. I gauge it by how many chances, how many shots, how many opportunities on goal, how many goals do we score, how many do we concede. And I think anything in between is you know, you can go down certain routes. And that's the way I've always looked at it. And it's funny because whenever we've tried to play a possession-based football in some of the games we've played, it's often been where we've created very little. So you can look at it two ways. We either work to improve that form of football, or we do what we're good at. And what we're good at the minute is creating chances quickly, attacking quickly, trying to excite the fans with that high octane football. You know, you hear about managers coming into the league, Klopp, first thing he talks about, fast, entertaining, dynamic football. You know, it's nothing new. They've been doing it on the continent for years. I think that what everyone probably does is they look at Barcelona and everyone wants to play like Barcelona. I've never been that motivated to play in that way because I think it would be difficult to do that. So therefore, I think we're evolving now. You have to have other ways of playing. I think our staple way of playing is a way we've had success so far. Can we be better at that? Can we get even better at what we do? Can we be better defensively? Can we be better on the counter? But I think my philosophy would always lend towards perhaps being more destructive and having lots and lots of flair all the time in the game.
If you had a regret or a low light of this first year in charge, what would it be?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I don't know really. I can't actually. It's bizarre. There must have been many. We talk about it all the time. You know, I drive in with two of the lads, two of the staff, and there's part of us all say it's been a good year. You know, and we're very thankful for that. We're very grateful for that. You know, we appreciate what we've had off the fans and what we've had off everyone else around the club. You guys supporting us as well and trying to help. I don't know. I mean, even you could look at the Derby game at home, possibly as disappointed as I've been to lose 4-0, but actually in that game there were lots of things we did well. It was a difficult game to play in, and then you look at that as an opportunity then to react and bounce back, and we did 2 days later on the 28th of December against Nottingham Forest in front of the cameras. So it wasn't a low light for too long. I think any game we lose, you know, I'm often not a particularly good loser for the first 2 or 3 hours, and then often really we reevaluate. So probably I couldn't think of one really low point of the year.
So what's your favourite memory of the year then?
Again, I know everyone harks back to it, but I think probably two in some ways. I think walking out of Molineux to see the away fans straight opposite us, and about 4,500 I think there was there that day, and you kind of, again, you know, it's almost like you've got to pinch yourself a little bit and think, wow, this is some club, you know, that follows the team like that on our first game and shows that much support and makes so much noise. And then the Watford game, I think it would be hard to beat that evening atmosphere, that goal going in, that feeling of winning, that overall moment of, you know, we've got half a chance here, you know, of doing something. So I would say probably the Watford game.
And moving from a different level with Burton Albion to Blues, what things have you had to adapt to or adjust to as a manager?
You know, I think again when we first came in, I think one of the even though I've played at this level and the level above, was, you know, will the players be more egotistical? Will it be harder to manage players that are obviously earning more money than players in League Two? But I have to say that's not been an issue at all. I don't think we face that much difficulty in that transition. I think the work we've done is very similar to Burton. The way we've dealt with players, I've always tried to be honest with players, always tried to treat players who I think that they should be treated like people. And I think at any level of football, you know, people respect that if you treat them honestly and fairly. What I would probably say is just the enormity of you know, even the training ground. You know, you think of the staff. When we first came in, the lads said they were a little bit low staffed. I think there was about 14, and I kind of reminded them that we had about 4 at Burton in the same roles, and I think that's the challenge of being a Premier League club and then coming down to the Championship. And I think just managing that number of staff and the amount of people around the place and trying to sort of galvanise it a little bit and get us all in the right direction was possibly the toughest challenge at first compared to Burton.
So finally, what's to come? I mean, what are your short to medium term goals for the team, for the club?
Yeah, again, I don't tend to set goals. I do personally, you know, for the team, but I would never share that with anybody really. I think for us, it's why can't we be a team that's challenging at the top of the table at the end of the season? There's only people put the usual barriers in the way, don't they? People put money in. People put, you know, you can't possibly compete with these teams over a 46-game season. And I just think there's always one team. You know, there's always one team that's in and around it. You know, you look last season and think, well, actually, there's probably a couple. You look at Brentford, you look at Ipswich, in terms of financially punching above their weight. You know, I look back to many years ago when, I think Panos will love me for saying this, when Greece won the European Championships with a team that certainly wouldn't have been, you know, the most experienced team in the world. And I think sometimes the strength of a team can overcome any financial gains that you can have. So the challenge for us really is, you know, can we change our own perception of, you know, why can't we stay up there? You know, if we keep working hard enough and we keep trying to improve and we keep making small steps, then why not? That's got to be our challenge, and there was no point being in it to finish mid-table. I'd quit now if that was our aim. I genuinely believe that, you know, we have an opportunity to aspire to that.